Praise God. It's good to be home. I spent 2 weeks ago, or got home last Monday. It's something. There are things that only spending 7 days in a second world country can make you appreciate. Things like hot water on demand. It was funny. I took a shower in Pastor Sixto's shower in his yard. It's a bamboo shower thing because they don't have indoor plumbing yet in their house. They're building a house, and took a shower in it. And it's a half turn ball valve to turn on the water. And it's cold water, but it was 80, 90 degrees, so it was nice having something to cool me off. But when I got out, I turned to my interpreter, Adina. I said, "Hey, Adina, I'm sorry, I used all the hot water." And Pastor Sixto says, "What'd you say?" And I said, "No más agua caliente." He says, "No, you just turned the valve the wrong way." You can't turn the valve the wrong way. He's a funny guy. But we had no air conditioning. We couldn't drink water out of the tap. The food safety protocols are not that great. In fact, I went to the store by myself because I wanted to surprise Sharon because she wanted bacon. So I was going to cook breakfast. So I walked about 8 blocks down to the grocery store. I think I thought I had this, but there's a difference between tocina and whatever I was saying instead, which was pork, and trying to figure that all out. So I finally called Sharon on the phone, and the lady is back there with her gloves on cutting meat, and she takes my phone with the gloves. She just cut meat on and starts talking to Sharon. I'm like, "Oh, come on." But, so you appreciate the things we have here. But it's moments however, there are moments that can only be captured when you put yourself in this place to let God use you and to do things for you. And this is the first trip I've taken to Peru one without a group. It was just me and Michelle. She went before I did and got there about 4 days before I did. But it's the first time that I've ever let the people determine what I was going to do. It wasn't predetermined. I knew I was going to Sapasoa, but we had called Pastor Sixto and said, "Hey, I'm coming Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You pick where I preach at. You pick what I do. Go from there." And then I gave Sharon free reign, my interpreter in Peru. I gave her free reign. So it was kind of a free range trip. Michelle was there to be with Sharon as the 1-year anniversary of her husband James's passing happened. A lot of great breakthrough came through that. Sharon will be here in 2 weeks to visit us. She's coming from Peru for 2 months, and she's going to stop by in McPherson and spend some time with us. But Sharon predates even her relationship with our church predates me and Michelle. She was actually Pastor David and Kelly's interpreter for years before she was our interpreter. And it's just wonderful, amazing woman, really amazing what God has done in her life. The coolest thing about the trip was she had not been back to her husband's grave since the day he was buried. And she would not go back, would not. And we, on Tuesday afternoon, my biggest thing that I wanted to do, I wanted to go to the market, like open market meat. I wanted to see that. I just think those are so cool. But we get done with that. She says, "I think I'm ready to go to the cemetery." I'm like, "Okay." So we rode forever on a moto car out there and went there. And then next thing we know, we're driving by the hospital. She had not been driven by the hospital since her husband had died. All these things, and just you see kind of breakthrough happening in her, a healing process happening through her. So very, very thankful that God allowed that. But I wanted to tell you guys, because I always move forward because we were like, "Hey, I want to preach. So I don't give you guys a good explanation of what went on, what we did, that kind of thing. So I landed 2 weeks ago on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. in Tarapoto. And after refreshing up a little bit, we went to the church service. I then took a nap, and then I preached that afternoon in Tarapoto. So if you want to go to the first picture there. So the first night there, got to go preach. I'm wearing the same shirt, but got to preach. And I preached a message in Peru on how Jesus restores our ability to reflect God's image. So you can go to the next slide there. This is Pastor David. He's the pastor of the church in Tarapoto, which is a church of about 500 people. that attend there. He also is over all of the Smyrna churches, which is the larger group of churches that we teach at there. So he runs all that 120 or 135 churches in all of Peru. So he does that. That's Sharon beside me. Go to the next one here. This is Nay and Loeda and little Gia. This is such a great story, y'all. I did not realize, sometimes I say things and I don't realize that I said them, but hey, it works out. Nay and Loeda had a miscarriage, but it wasn't like it was a pretty terrible miscarriage. She somewhere around 6-7 months, they lost the baby. The baby died. The doctor documented the baby died, but he didn't tell them. She ended up carrying this baby inside of her for a month and a half and went completely septic, almost died, and it was just a horrific experience for them. And the last time we were there, we purposely asked David Austin if we could be the ones to talk to them about the miscarriage because we've experienced it. And I wanted to walk them through what we honestly got healthy counseling through that, and we walked them through that. So we walked them through this. We spent about 2 hours counseling them, and I didn't realize I said this afterwards. They told me this. He said, when you were done, you prayed for us and everything, and then you told us to go home and make love. And they listened to me. And this is Gia. So, who I emphatically have nicknamed Boo, and bought her a Sully monster toy because, like, her little pigtail, she's the cutest little thing in the world. But yeah, seriously, they had a baby 9 months later. Praise God for that. You can go to the next one. This is the church in Juan Guerra. So Juan Guerra, I don't think any of the people that went on the trip. So the walls there were built by Chuck, Rusty, and I think Ben went on a trip there one time, and I think Phil may have gone once. But those walls of that church were built there. What there was the first time I preached in Peru was just a little like wood, like trees with a metal shed over it. Over the last 2 years, they put a roof on the building, and they have a full roof, and they actually have a pretty big congregation. But that we paid for the walls of that church to be built. We good? Okay, cool. So we paid for the walls to be built on that. They have a roof now. Just amazing things happening in that. But we had a big part in what went on in that church. Go to the next slide, please. This is the pastor and his wife of that church. Again, another Pastor Vidal, and her name is slipping my mind for some reason, but their little boy. Again, 3 years. I'm so excited to go meet these. They had lost child after child after child. And the last night I was there 3 years ago, I prayed over them, and I felt the Holy Spirit speak that God was going to release what had been withheld from them. And prayed over them, and they found out like a day later or 2 days later they were pregnant. And they had lost so many children that they had given up. They're like, oh yeah, like whatever, you know. And then they're like, but it was prophetic. God was speaking the promise, and that's their little boy. He actually plays guitar and sings. This kid, like, his dad's a great guitar player, and he plays the whistles that have like all the different lengths and everything. The dude it's crazy listening to him play for that. But this is the pastor of the church in Juan Guerra we have a close tie with. What's crazy about this is you got to understand, in Peru, they're still stuck in kind of that old Pentecostal thought process that if bad things are happening to you, it's because God's mad at you. And it kind of goes back to their to the spiritual side of things there in that country as well. So both these couples, like there was an attitude in the church and through the church people, not from their pastor, but from church people of, well, if you lost that baby, it's because you've done something wrong. Something's wrong with you. You need to get right with God. And so our message to them, even in that time, was no, things happen. It's not because God's mad at you. God's not distanced himself from you. God doesn't hate you. That's not why this is going on, you know, and just that restoration process. But this is a beautiful experience of what God was doing. Go ahead and go to the next one. Wednesday night, I preached at a men's group. It was great to talk to them about basically what I preached a few weeks ago here in church. You see, benvenidos, that means welcome. Everybody comes up to me and kisses me on the cheek and tells me benvenidos. And I say benvenidos back, realizing I'm doing the U2 thing. It's like no, you belong here. Sorry, not welcome. But it was a great experience there. I met my interpreter that night, Adine, who traveled with me. You can go to the next slide. And then Thursday we got in a car with 6 other people and rode. We basically used the public transit to get to Sapassoa. We went to a village of Piskuyaku. I said it right for once. Could not say it there. But if you go ahead and go to the next slide, this is the church in Piskuyaku. I actually preached there in 2020 with Lacey and got to speak again to that church. This is up here is Myra, Pastor Myra, which is Pastor Sixto's wife, and their son Benjamin. And then in the corner here is the pastor's wife of this church in Piskuyaku. You can go to the next slide. And then on Friday night, I preached in a little village of Shima. You can go to that one. This was a very, very tiny church, but what I loved was, and I wanted to put a picture up there, you can kind of see right here are Bibles given by Operation Christmas Child. So getting to see, like, when we do the shoe boxes, those kind of things, like, that stuff's actually getting out to these kids. I wish they had someone that would be there to teach them how to actually read those Bibles. But a great night at that church, just a great experience. And then finally, on Saturday night, I preached in Sapassoa. You can go to the next one there. This is Pastor Sixto and Myra's house. They are so cool as pastors. They're building their own house, so you can kind of see it. Their house, I think it was in 2017 or 18, their house is completely washed away by a flood. So they've been living in like 2 rooms at the church forever, and they started building the house. So now they're living in the bottom section of the house, which they plan to eventually use for their business. He is an engineer, and she's a horticulturist. So she helps with conservation, teaching people conservation. But they have a huge section of land that they have oranges on and trees for building, like for furniture. Everything they have is purposely made to be able to sell. And so we were there. You can see there's animals there. I'm on the ground showing Benjamin how to put together Legos because they don't have Legos in Peru, and Terry took Legos. So I got to sit on the concrete and help build Legos. They cooked dinner for us. You can see in the background there's the shower. But they had a turkey. And I was like, oh, you have a turkey? That's cool. I love turkeys. And they're like, yeah, we'd like to get more. Because we'd like to be able to sell them because it's a big deal here at Christmas time to have a turkey. So we'd like to be able to raise turkeys and sell turkeys and everything. So I got a hold of Ronaldo, my driver that was coming to get me, and sent him back to the market that I had gone to on Tuesday because I saw that they had turkeys there. And so we as a church bought them 2 more turkeys. So just to continue. And it meant something to them that it was like, you pay attention to our needs. You pay attention to what we want. If you go to the next slide, I preached there Saturday night, got to be at that church. This is a church that we as a church have supported for 7 years. We send money regularly to help with, Pastor Sixto doesn't just preach minister at this church. He is doing missions work in all of the villages around him. Almost every night of the week he's visiting a church. They go and do work down in a city called Wanhui, which they do feed kids and teach the Bible. But just to show you, go to the next slide. In 2022, when we were there, if you can remember, Pastor Rustin asked you guys to take up an offering to pay for the roofing material for their church. And this is the roof. Like we paid for this roof to be built as a church. So we're being a part of that church and what's going on there. We have so you guys get to see where your money goes when you send it. If you can go to the next slide for me. He asked me before I left, he says, we need some kids' church rooms. We have an architect that is going to draw up the drawings for us. He says we need, basically they need $500 American to pay the architect to do the drawings so they can build a children's wing right there. So if you feel so led this morning in the offering that you want to give towards that, we want to continue to support them because it is fertile ground. God is doing great things in Sapassoa, and we love to connect with them. I would like to go down and take a crew down there in the next year or two, and us go help build that children's wing. So keep that in mind as we go through this. But that's the gist of my trip to Peru. Got back Monday. Tuesday came to church. Wednesday got sick. So Wednesday and Thursday I was sick with the stomach bug that my most on it probably got there. But it was just an amazing trip. So thank you, church, for sending me. Someone posted on Facebook, I'm so glad we get to share our pastor. Thank you for being a church that shares me. That doesn't think I have to be here every moment. I'm so thankful for Pastor Rustin and Pastor Hannah for they just operate things so well while I'm gone that I don't have to worry about. I mean, there wasn't a moment I called them a couple times, but it wasn't like, hey, everything okay? And no, I know things are okay. So thank you, church. But today we're going to be getting into Matthew chapter 18. I'm going to continue with what Pastor Rustin taught, and you can go ahead and kill the pictures. Continue with what Pastor Rustin taught last week as we continue through Matthew 18. Matthew 18 is such a great book. Jesus is continuing to teach his disciples what it looks like to be a part of the kingdom of heaven, what it means to be a follower of Jesus. It's not a once and done, hey, I said a prayer, now I just wait kind of thing. No, Jesus tells us to take up our cross and follow him, to die to ourselves daily. It's this invitation to commune with God, to follow God, to do connection with him, and to live a life connected to him. So as he's talking about that, and as he's going through that, we're going to pick up in verse 10 of chapter 18. Father, I praise you for your word. I thank you that it does not return void. I thank you for all that you're doing in our lives and that you're moving and active and breathing. And God, I thank you that we get to preach the word from a vantage point of going line by line, verse by verse, to really see what you want to speak to us, but not only that, what you were speaking back then and what it meant. So God, I pray that today you give us ears to hear and hearts to receive. In the name of Jesus, and everybody said, amen. So he says, see to it that you do not despise one of these little ones. So again, he's on this kick of the little ones. I think Pastor Rustin used this verse last week. On little ones, children, like his children. He's alluding to that because I tell you that in heaven, their angels continually view the face of my Father in heaven. He says, what do you think? If someone has 100 sheep and one of them goes astray, won't he leave the 99 on the hillside and go search for the stray? And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he rejoices over the sheep more than over the 99 that did not go astray. In the same way, it is not the will of your Father in heaven that one of these little ones should perish. So last week, Pastor Rustin opened this chapter beautifully. I was like, wow, he really stepped on some toes last week, and he got fired up. It was good stuff. But what I want you to understand is as we dive into this whole chapter, Jesus is talking about snares and traps. Snares and traps. So in order for Jewish people to hunt, they can't hunt like we hunt. They can't just go shoot an animal and eat it. Because every animal that is for eating or sacrificing throughout the Old Testament has to die a painless, humane way. Now we would argue, well, when I shoot the deer, it dies instantly. When I shoot that kind of thing, but that's not always true. So what they have to do is they have to use snares and traps that humanely catch the animal, and then they have to humanely dispatch the animal without it suffering at all. If an animal has suffered at all, it cannot be eaten. So Jesus is using that reference here about snares and traps and everything. So he talks in the beginning, don't you dare set snares and traps for my little ones, for those that are young in their faith, for little kids. And then he goes on to say, okay, if your hand causes you to be caught in a snare, cut it off. If your eye causes you to get caught in a snare, pluck it out. This is all about the kingdom of heaven, being a part of the kingdom of heaven, being a follower of Jesus. It should be the most important thing in our lives. It should be the thing that is most dear to us. God, I do not want to stray from following you. I don't want to get lost. I want to stay with the rest of the sheep and be led by you to wherever you're leading us to eat at, because he leads us beside still waters. He leads us beside green pastures. You know, that's the whole idea of having a shepherd, is he's leading us. I'm not the shepherd. He's the shepherd. I'm just an under shepherd. I'm working for the king. He's showing me, I'm trying to follow, but I'm following well. I'm a sheep as well. So I want to go where he wants to lead. And that should be, and that's what he's saying here. He's like, so desperate should you be to stay on the path that is following me, that's not, that it's stay going where I want to go, that if your hand is causing you to get caught in traps, cut it off. If your eye is causing you to get caught in traps, gouge it out. It sounds morbid, but that's the point he's getting. So important is this following him. And I don't think for a lot of us that's the draw and the desire of our hearts all the time. It's like, well, I want to be happy, and we get trapped and we get snared and everything. So he's going back into so here he's talking now. He's about the lost sheep. The majority of the time when a sheep, I don't know if you've seen the videos. I've seen the videos on TikTok and everything of how stupid sheep are. Like, so when God describes us as sheep, it is not a compliment. Okay, in no way, shape, or form is sheep are dumb. Like, have you seen the video where the sheep's head stuck in the hole, and they had to drag it out, or the sheep's caught in a ditch, and they pull it out of the ditch, and it takes off running, and it falls back into the ditch? Like, that's what's going on here. So when he's talking about a lost sheep, it's not like a sheep that's like just persistently wandering off and doing that. It's like a sheep that's been caught in a trap, fell in a hole, got his head stuck between a tree branch. Like you name it, sheep had to do stupid things to get caught and lose track of the rest of the flock. They get caught in traps. So Jesus is warning us about, hey, don't get caught in the traps. And don't be a trap setter. Oh boy, do we like to set traps. I think we do it a lot of times because we don't want to deal with the internal stuff going on in our lives. So we'll set traps for other believers in the church. So we'll see, I wasn't stupid enough to fall for that. You see that? You know, instead of being, and it reminds me of a safety meeting I was in the oil patch several years ago. Where like they were talking about things that you should do on a location when you get to it. Like you back your truck into the location so that when you leave, you pull straight out and you don't run over anything, or you can learn how to back. But they go like all these things they're telling us about. And one guy goes, he's like, you need to point out every obstacle. Like if there's a rock on the ground, hey, there's a rock over there. Don't trip over that rock. And I'm like, or how about you pick up the rock that's a tripping hazard and move it out of the way. I mean, but that's what, like, we operate that way so often. It's like, hey, don't step on that rock, or we'll move the rock purposely so that someone trips over it. It's these things that we do because, like, it's like, oh, I don't want to deal with my own internal stuff, so I got to make sure that there's somebody that's less than me or worse than me. We always have our eyes on other people instead of on the shepherd. What if it would happen if we as a church, instead of looking, and if, I want you to go back, he's like, whoa, before he even goes in like this whole thing about the cutting the hand off and everything, the one he's dealing with the most is offense. Woe to those who catch, like you're never going to get away from offense, but woe to those who catch offense. Woe to those who get caught in the trap. And it's a trap. I mean, man, there are so many traps. He says one, he starts out, he says, look out for the trap of seeking to be elevated. It's a trap. Oh man, I believe this. You know, man, my life was so much happier, like so much easier before I got into management. But there's something inside of me, like I want to get to management. Anybody feel me? Like I want to get to management, and then once you're there, it's like it's a trap. Now I got to get these people that don't want to do what they're supposed to do, and like don't want to get up on time, don't want any accountability. I got to get them to show up and do what they're supposed to do, or get people to be accountable for what they're doing. Like nobody wants to be accountable. So management's a trap. So it's a trap to, like, God will elevate who he wants to elevate. And if you've been elevated because God elevated you, it's because it's because he's growing and working at you. But it's don't beware of the trap of elevation. And then he says, don't set the traps for the unbelievers. And then he's like, don't set your own traps. Don't set traps for yourself. How bad are we about setting traps for ourselves? I mean, I get caught in my traps more than anything. Like, it's like putting up I just imagine, the loop with the rope on it tied to the tree. Like, you're like I feel like I spend most of my life like Wile E. Coyote. I put the anvil out there and then it ends up whacking me. We set our traps and everything. And then how often are we like the sheep? God digs us out of the hole, pulls us out of the hole, pulls us out of the hole, pulls us out of the hole, and right back into the hole we go. Why? Because our eyes are on the things around us, not on the one who's leading us. It's the single greatest thing that I feel like is plaguing Christianity is like our eyes are everywhere. Everywhere. We're worried about everything. One thing I learned in Peru was and it's kind of a struggle, but it's kind of not, is like they know what they need to make every day. So whether you're driving a motor taxi or you're selling fish or you're doing or you're like whatever job you're doing or you're selling oranges or whatever, once you've sold the amount that you need to take care of that day, you're done. You go home and you rest. You take a nap. And the next day you get up and you do the same thing. And in talking to Mike Tri, he's like, it drives me nuts because they don't think about the future. You can't hey, why don't you sell a few more oranges so in case you're sick tomorrow? But they don't think that way. They don't think about the future. They don't think about, they don't have wills. They don't have all these things. But then I'm sitting like, how much simpler would that life be? It's actually a biblical life. Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. And don't look back at yesterday. Just worry about today, for today has enough of its own problems. But so oftentimes our eyes are everywhere. What can I do next? What can I do? I need to plan for this. I need to, and everything. And we're just constantly getting caught in traps. But here's the beauty of it. When you do get caught in traps, God goes out looking for you. He doesn't leave you. He doesn't forsake you. He's not so angry. I mean, that's what Jesus is saying here. We so often look at God from this point of God was angry, so he sent Jesus to die so he wouldn't be angry at us anymore. He's such an angry God. Don't mess up or God's going to be angry at you. Don't do this or God's going to ditch you and forget about you and you're going to be out. You're out. We're out. You're out. We're always looking at ways that we can push people out or that they are out. Instead of looking at the fact that, like Jesus just said it here, like when a guy loses a sheep, does he not lead the rest of the sheep to go find the one that's lost, that's caught in the trap? And then when he finds it, he rejoices over the fact that he has it, even though he still had the 99, but he rejoices that he has all of it back. How much more does your Father in heaven rejoice over one of the little ones that comes back? One of those ones that stumbled and came back. How much more? Does that sound like an angry God who's always looking at your mistakes and determining that he's done with you? But that's the gospel that's preached so often. Oh, you had a miscarriage. God must be mad at you. Does that at all sound like the God of the Bible that we read about? But it trickles down. It trickles down. It permeates everywhere because that's what we want, because that's how we tend to act. That's how we tend to be. That's how we tend to think. So we begin to think that's how God's got to think. But it's not. For God so loved the world, he sent his only son. While we are still yet sinners, Christ died for us. I mean, these are the things that we hear in the Word and how God is described. And then you hear this system here where like, hey, how much more does your Father like get excited about this? So I want you to understand, Jesus is systematically working out through his disciples what it looks like to be a follower, a citizen of the kingdom. Now, I am thankful that I am an American citizen, that I have hot water. I took such a long hot shower when I got home. First thing I did, like hot shower, hot water. It was awesome. I got a drink out of the faucet this morning. And I'm like sitting there going, I'm drinking water out of the faucet. Wow, that's cool. And some of you guys are going, gross. You know, you want your bottled water still. But the luxuries that we have here, I love the luxuries of being an American citizen. But that's not my permanent place. I'm not so focused on that. I'm a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. And in turn, I should act like a citizen of that kingdom more than a citizen of this kingdom. When I go to Peru, I'm not walking around going like, I'm an American. They know it. Gringo. I don't know how many times I heard gringo over the last 2 weeks, but I'm not like this pomp and circumstances, like that kind of thing. Like, I'm going there as a citizen of the kingdom of heaven with this willingness and desire. God, I just want to do what you want me to do. Put in your past that. So, we need to do a better job as fellow Christians of pointing out the traps. Hey, it's a trap. Someone comes up to you offended and they want to talk about it and they want to tell you like, hey, I think you're caught in a trap. Because Satan, like more than anything, Satan wants us to be caught in traps. He doesn't want to kill us. I know he comes to steal and kill and destroy. But more than anything, like it's much easier to just catch you in a trap because you'll end up suffocating yourself. Instead of getting help, instead of getting out of the trap, instead of doing what you need to do, you'll just end up continue to pull on the snare until it chokes you to death. Instead of crying out for help. And understand this, you do not want to be the lost sheep. I don't know how many times in my 10 years of being a pastor, someone has gone, well, I was the lost sheep pastor, and you were not a good shepherd to come looking after me. And I'm just going to go like, are you an infant? Like, are you desiring to be lost? Do you like to hang out there? I mean, do you enjoy like being caught and not being able to one? I'm not the shepherd he's talking about here. The shepherd he's talking about here is God. God's the one that comes after. However, I can be used by the shepherd to retrieve lost sheep. He can send you and me out to do that. The best story of the entire trip to Peru was having lunch with Juanita and David. Now, I'll tell you about Juanita and David. Juanita and David, they were Paul Conger's like number one kids. And for those of you who don't know Paul Conger, he was an evangelist that used to come to our church. He preached over 100 sermons in this church. Big man, gruff. And I always looked at him as this gruff, overbearing guy. I honestly didn't like Paul on this earth that much. I went on trips to Peru with him and everything, but I did not understand that everything he did here was all a mission to get to his true calling, which is where he loved on people like none other. And I'm sitting there at lunch with Juanita and David, and I didn't want to go to this lunch. Sharon had put it together, and I'd given her permission to put it together, but I was whining about it all the way up to it. I'm like, I don't really even know them. Why am I don't have a relationship with them. I don't remember, like, and everything. And then when they walk in, I was like, oh, that's who Juanita is. I remember now, and I had done a lot with Juanita. But we're sitting there having lunch, and we're talking. And at some point, I asked David, what do you do for a living? And because Juanita teaches English, and she's really good at English. Dave, what do you do for a living? And he told me, he's like, I'm doing some stock trading. I'm like, what? In Peru? Okay. And he goes, and I drive a little bit and everything, but then at one point he just kind of breaks down and he's talking about Paul. And he says, man, I never could accept Paul's love for me. He loved me so much, and he always told me I could do great things, but I never could accept love. And I was like, well, why can't you accept love? He's like, well, I really couldn't ever accept love. He said, before I was married, the only people that I could get to love me were prostitutes because I paid them. But then one night a prostitute told me I wasn't good enough for her. So he says even the trash didn't want me. But then Paul came into my life and he starts loving on me, and I had this belief, but I couldn't accept that I was loved. And I started to say something, and Michelle's like, shut up and listen to him. And I listened, and I began to hear what he's saying. And then he says something. He says, I think about killing myself all the time. I'm so thankful for Michelle saying, shut up and listen. He says, I didn't want to come to this lunch today. He says, I was going to drop my wife and my kids off and leave. And Michelle leans over and she says, he was going to kill himself today, Terry. Sensed it in our spirit. But his daughter goes, Dad, you taught us that when someone comes to see us or whatever, that we need to at least say hello. So he came in, and then he sat down, and he began to eat, and we began to have this conversation. And we began to break through it and everything. He was a sheep caught in a trap. And I was sent to Peru to set him free. The shepherd sees us, rejoices over us, cares for us so much. It was like in this instance, I'm understanding like just the Father's love for us. Loves us so much that this church would spend $4,000 to send Michelle and I to Peru to get him out of a trap. We prayed for him. We spent about 2 hours with them, walking through things with him. In the Sunday morning, I'm preaching. He's on the front row. He was at the men's thing in front row, and he's receiving it. But how much does our Father rejoice over us? And maybe we should spend a little less time like being the whiny lost sheep, and more time spending time with God, connecting with God, and doing a relationship with God so that we can be used to be sent out to help pull people out of the snares. What would this church look like? What would this church look like if we were all, God, show me someone caught in a snare today. God, help me find one of your lost sheep today. I want to be like you. I want to do what you did, Jesus. This is the beauty. He says, what do you think? If someone has 100 sheep and one of them goes astray, won't he leave the 99 on the hillside and go and search for the stray? This is, he's talking about a human shepherd. He says, and if he finds it, truly I tell you, he rejoices over the sheep more than the 99 that did not go astray. Now look at your heavenly Father. In the same way, it is not the will of your Father in heaven that one of these little ones should perish. It's not his will. So what does he need? He needs people who care enough and are connected enough with the shepherd that they're spending all their time with the shepherd. And they're becoming more and more like the shepherd. They're learning how to tend to the sheep. They're learning how to find the still waters. They're learning what it is to lie down and to find the pastures that are safe to lie down in. Those that are spending all their time with the shepherd, connected to the shepherd, reading the shepherd's word, reading about the shepherd, studying the shepherd, talking with the shepherd, praying to the shepherd, singing to the shepherd, till at one point they begin to look like a shepherd. Oh, to have a church that looked like a bunch of shepherds. And then those shepherds begin to go out and tend to the flock. It's not just the guy up here. It's not just a person that holds an office in a church. This is an all believers thing. We're all invited to be part of it. You too can have your David and Juanita moment. And it saddens me that there's so few Christians that are looking to have those moments. that want to be used in that way. We're just satisfied with, oh yeah, I said a prayer and I'm good and I'm just going to wait for heaven to come. No, there's so abundant. Like he says, I give you life. I came to give a life and life abundantly. You know what life abundantly is? Being used by the Good Shepherd to do his will. Because there's nothing more fulfilling in life. I'm sitting there like, okay, God, I see you. I'm a wine bag whining about having to go to this lunch, and all I want to go do is look at turkeys at the market. And you wanted me to have this moment. Because honestly, that's what I was whining about. I was like, I don't want to go to lunch. I'm not hungry. I want to go to the market. And it smelled terrible. It was awful. The market was not good. I had a different view of what I thought it was going to look like. And it was not, and I ain't eating none of that. The grapes were good, though. But that tends to be where we go, church. That tends to be how we live our lives. You want to change the world around you, start hanging out with the shepherd. Because the more and more you hang out with the shepherd, the more you're going to look like it. We're a year into this. Be with Jesus, become like Jesus, do what Jesus did. You're into it. I'm hoping 5 years from now you finally catch it. Because I ain't laying off. Because that's what I believe is what God has for our church. I believe that's what in these last days, he's wanting to raise up men and women of God who will go where he tells them to go, do what he tells them to do, and allow God to move through them. But that means we got to get out of the snares ourselves. We got to look at what is causing me to stumble? What am I getting tripped up in? What keeps wrapping around my feet? I got to get rid of that in my life. Because I want to be used. I want to be with the flock that's following the shepherd so that I can go out and hey, Jesus, there's a lost sheep over here. You want me to help out? I believe that's what he has for us. So whether you're caught in a trap right now, or you've been caught, give it to Jesus. Go to Jesus. Find somebody to pray with you. We have people come up every Sunday on the sides here. I feel bad for them sometimes because no one comes up to be prayed for or anything, but it's not a bad thing to come up and be prayed for. That's where freedom happens. That's where snares and chains and traps fall off of us, is when we allow others into it. But don't use it as, we know that if I get caught in a trap, God's going to come after me. But I'm not going to use that as an excuse to keep sinning. I'm not going to use it to keep, how dumb would we be, if we watched our kid constantly tripping over the same thing in the yard, there's a rock there, and every day your kid walks out there and falls over it and smacks their face, Mom, stop being stupid. You know that's there. Yet we do that in the church. We do that in our own lives. We just I keep going back to it. I keep tripping over the same thing. It's okay, God will forgive me. Yeah, He'll forgive you, but your face is all jacked up. Stop doing that. Stop going there. Stop being led there. Instead, go hang out with the shepherd. I heard a story, I don't know if it's true, but if a sheep keeps wandering off, the shepherd breaks its leg and then carries it around everywhere so it's stuck with them. I don't want God to break my leg. Okay? I don't need that in my life. So I'm going to do what I need to do to stay with Him so I quit wandering off. Let's start trying that. And let's stop living offended. I think this last week in the life groups was amazing from what I'm being told about learning about offense. But man, offense is the most destructive of all sins. It destroys the lives around us because we become bitter and angry and full of, and we just spread it. We disconnect from everybody because we're bitter and we're offended. Let's get out of that trap. Would you stand with me this morning? Praise you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Father, I praise you this morning for every person here. God, I thank you for this word and for this message, for the opportunity to share. But God, now it's time for us to respond to what you're teaching us, to what you're speaking today. So God, I pray that as every person here is standing here, Holy Spirit, you begin to just move in this area of response. Quicken with our spirit where we need to respond. God, maybe it's someone here who has never made a decision to truly follow you, to stay with the shepherd, to do it the shepherd's way, to make you Lord of the life, to make you shepherd of their life. God, I pray right where they're at, they would confess with their mouth that you are Lord, and believe in their heart that you died, that you're risen from the dead. God, I pray that after they did that, they would take a moment and they take the bulletin and they fill out that response card and let us know, today I decided to follow Jesus, so that we can connect with them and get them to get into the disciple group. God, I pray for every other person here. God, this world is full of traps, snares, and deceit, both in the church and outside of the church. So God, I pray right now that you would just begin to show us the areas of our lives where we keep getting stuck in the hole, where we keep getting stuck and pulled away from the flock. And God, that we would hand over those snares to you this morning. Make a decision to release those snares to you. Whether it be alcohol, whether it be a sexual addiction, whether it be offense, or whether it be like false information or false beliefs, or even, God, a false hope in something that is not you. God, I pray this morning we would hand it over to you. We'd allow you to move in such a way in our lives to release us from this from these snares and bring us back into the flock. God, help us to connect. I praise you for it. We're going to respond by singing this song again. We have a couple over here that are willing to pray with you. If at all during this song that you feel like you need to be prayed for, or you want to be prayed for, I invite you to come be prayed for this morning. Let's respond to Jesus by singing this message by singing this song.